In-flight fire, a pilot's worst nightmare next to a mid-air collision. Our old friend Hal Stockman recently suffered an in-flight fire, and the man with more lives than a cat lived to tell about it and tell his story. So who's Hal Stockman? He's the most famous guy, the most famous pilot on the internet that doesn't have his own internet presence. All these various channels and Facebook pages are about Hal. He doesn't maintain them himself. And when you meet Hal at any of these air shows, you find out right away that he's one of the greatest ambassadors of aviation, specifically experimental aircraft aviation and STOL, short takeoff or landing. And Hal's the kind of guy that'll spend all day chatting with the general public all about airplanes and will tell you every single detail about his particular airplane. So for the last couple of years, Hal's been running around in Lawnmower 3, a Rans S7 designed experimental aircraft powered by a Rotax 912 engine modified, and he's been very competitive in both traditional STOL and STOL drag racing with this aircraft. But this last year, Hal built him a new airplane very quickly out of a kit, a Badlands Vaquero aircraft kit, which is basically a Super Cub fuselage design with metal wings and a single strut. But the main feature of this new aircraft is the new Rotax 916IS turbocharged engine. This new Rotax engine is a revolutionary new light aircraft power plant. It's only 189 pounds and yet puts out 160 horsepower, and with this turbocharger it produces that 160 horsepower all the way up to 15,000 feet. An absolute game changer for the short takeoff and landing crowd that want to operate out of higher density altitude airports. And the main feature of this engine is that it can run on just about any type of fuel and is going to be the answer to when aviation phases out 100 low lead fuel. Now, I caught up with Hal at the Reno Air Show this last October and got my first look at his new aircraft. Here's Hal Stockman's new rig, Lawnmower 4, a Badlands Vaquero with the Rotax engine. He's got the 916IS in this. So a little different quite a bit different than Lawnmower 3, which was a Rans design. So he's got the metal wings, tube and fabric fuselage. Hal, how many horsepower are you getting out of this currently?
60.
160.
Yeah.
There's Hal himself. Say hi, Hal.
Hi.
Now, Hal assembled this aircraft very quickly last summer, and one of the features is this carbon fiber cowling that Hal had to make from scratch. And in doing this installation, Hal did change quite a few things around with the exhaust on the installation of this 916IS. Now, there's a great interview with Hal following his in-flight fire here on Every Pilot's Worst Nightmare on YouTube, produced by Jonas Marcinko. See the link below. Hal was attending a small-town fly-in here at the West Desert Air Park in Fairfield, Utah, when he decided to go ahead and spend the night that night following the fly-in as the temperatures picked up and the winds picked up and the turbulence. So he left first thing in the morning to proceed back home to Elko, Nevada, when the aircraft caught fire at 3,000 feet above the ground, westbound, right parallel to Interstate 80, following the road. While cruising at 3,000 feet, without any indication from the engine at all, Hal noticed flames licking up around his right ankle. So coming from the engine and either around the firewall and into the cockpit. As soon as he saw those flames, he immediately shut down the engine, shut off the fuel, and dove the aircraft at nearly V&E, maximum speed, for the ground below, where he picked up this frontage road alongside Interstate 80 and was able to safely get the aircraft on the ground and stopped. So as Hal dove the aircraft down, shutting off the engine, shutting off the fuel, the fire appeared to go out, or it slowed way down. But as soon as he slowed down to round out to flare, the fire restarted with a vengeance. And what had happened is that carbon fiber cowling, the resin in that carbon fiber cowling caught fire, and it could not be put out. So as soon as he began to slow the aircraft down, that fire really got going again. Another thing is, even though you've got the engine shut down, the propeller is still windmilling. It's a single engine airplane. There's no feathering of the propeller. So as you are diving the aircraft and the propeller is windmilling, the oil pump is still turning, and so oil is still being produced. So if this was a failure of an oil pressure line, specifically to the turbocharger, that oil would still be getting pumped out, further feeding the fire, even with the engine shut down. So Hal was able to quickly land the aircraft, bring it to a stop, and jump out of the aircraft before the flames consumed the aircraft. He even got some of his stuff out of the aircraft as well. He did not carry a fire extinguisher with him, and in his interview he says that even if he had 2 fire extinguishers with him, they would not have been strong enough to knock down the flames from that carbon fiber fire. So the authorities were notified, and NTSB said, go ahead and take the airplane apart, take it home, and put it beside the hangar, but don't work on it anymore until we can come take a look at it and try to determine a probable cause. Because the entire Rotax industry, all the folks that are interested in this new engine are very curious to find out what was the cause of this fire. Was it something with the design of the new engine, or was it something with the installation of the engine, or some of the modifications that Hal did in his installation of this engine to this airframe? So check out the full interview with Hal on Jonas Marchenko's YouTube channel. We're very lucky to have Hal still around. As I always say, racing improves the breed. And as Hal says, they're going to get into here and find out exactly what happened and what failed so that it does not happen again. Thank you so much for your support of this channel, especially the folks over on Patreon that made this content possible. See you here.